Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely rethink one of the absolute most common daily rituals in human history. Most of us, we just view caffeine as this mindless morning habit, a comforting warm mug to kind of kickstart the day. But when you actually dig into the performance science, caffeine is way, way more than that. It's literally a high-precision tool for human flourishing. And today, we're going to figure out exactly how to wield it. Now, I want you to be totally honest with yourself for a second here. When you reach for that cup of coffee or tea, are you drinking it because you genuinely want to optimize your performance? Or like so many of us, are you just using it reactively? Is it essentially a blunt instrument you're using to just bludgeon your brain into alertness, desperately trying to survive chronic sleep debt? Look, it's completely understandable if you are. We've all been there. But it does mean you're leaving a massive amount of potential on the table.
Okay, let's dive into this. We almost always start with this baseline habit of the exhausted modern worker, right? It's mindless, it's totally reactive, and it basically just leads to dependency so you can feel normal. But I want to contrast that with the optimized reality of a true high performer. In that world, caffeine is a strategic asset. It's a precision tool that you use for intentional thriving. It becomes an exercise in true human agency.
To get you from merely surviving to true optimization, we're going to follow this exact blueprint today. 1. Habit versus agency. 2. A bicycle for the mind. 3. The physical effort hack. 4. The neuroprotective long game. And 5. The golden rules. We're going to systematically upgrade your relationship with caffeine across your mind, your body, and your entire lifespan.
First up, habit versus agency, shifting the paradigm.
The whole secret to shifting this paradigm really comes down to understanding what this stuff is actually doing to your brain. It acts as an adenosine antagonist. So throughout the day, your brain produces this chemical called adenosine. It builds up and it signals to your body that it's getting tired. What caffeine does is it comes in and physically blocks those adenosine receptors. It effectively prevents your brain's off switch from being flipped. And by doing that, it raises your baseline neural firing rate, making you feel incredibly sharp, alert, and capable. Think of it like this. Caffeine is an absolute master of molecular mimicry. It's essentially masquerading as the molecule of tiredness. It sneaks right into those cellular keyholes that are meant for adenosine, and it just jams them up. It doesn't magically create brand new energy, it's just temporarily hiding your fatigue from you. And once you really grasp that, you can start using it strategically instead of just indiscriminately chugging it all day. Moving on to number 2, a bicycle for the mind, cognitive optimization. So how do we apply that molecular mimicry? Well, the cognitive benefits of targeted caffeine use are incredibly well documented. We're talking about a moderate dose, usually between 100 to 400 milligrams, that actively sharpens your executive function and noticeably improves short-term memory. But here is the real magic. It actually lowers your perceived effort of a task. If you apply a targeted dose right before doing some challenging writing or analysis, you're priming your brain for total cognitive immersion. It makes it radically easier to slip straight into a flow state. And this brilliantly illustrates the core philosophy here. Caffeine acts as a bicycle for the mind. Think about it. Just like a bicycle dramatically increases your physical efficiency, caffeine lowers the friction you need to tackle really demanding, non-routine tasks. But you've got to notice the second half of that quote. It only works this way when it's integrated into a broader framework of deliberate performance. And you build that framework by turning your caffeine into a powerful behavioral trigger. If you consistently pair, say, a high-quality tea or a pour-over coffee with a specific workspace, and maybe a project management system like Personal Kanban, you actually create a Pavlovian productivity anchor. Over time, just experiencing the sensory ritual of making and tasting that specific beverage, it signals to your brain that it is time to shift out of passive email checking mode and go straight into monk mode execution. All right, section 3, the physical effort hack, physiological vitality. Now, what's really interesting about this side is how caffeine functions as a highly supported ergogenic aid for your body. It is both a physiological and a psychological effort hack. By boosting your adrenaline, it actually mobilizes free fatty acids to be used as fuel, which spares your muscle glycogen. That delays fatigue and increases endurance. It also increases motor unit recruitment, giving you a very real edge in strength. But honestly, the biggest thing, it boosts dopamine, which reduces your perceived exertion. It literally tricks your brain into feeling like a grueling, awful workout is intrinsically easier than it actually is. Section 4, the neuroprotective long game, longevity and resilience. Consider this absolutely staggering statistic about the long-term health profile of this stuff. Epidemiological studies consistently link lifelong moderate coffee consumption to a 30 to 40% lower risk of Parkinson's disease. Think about that. When we hear the word stimulant, we almost always assume it's taxing to the nervous system. But in this case, moderate use is actually associated with profound neurological resilience over the course of our lifespan. And it doesn't stop at Parkinson's. Regular, moderate drinkers show a significant reduction in Alzheimer's risk and even lower rates of type 2 diabetes. Caffeine appears to actively promote BDNF, that's brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is essentially like fertilizer for growing new neural connections. Now, it is absolutely worth noting that a lot of these benefits likely stem not just from the caffeine itself, but from the incredibly rich array of antioxidants and polyphenols that you find in whole sources like coffee and tea. Those compounds are actively combating neuroinflammation as we age. But beyond the hard biology, we really have to acknowledge the human experience of this. The actual ritual of having coffee or tea provides this critical, intentional break in our crazy fast-paced lives. It's a moment of stoic stillness. It gently boosts your serotonin and dopamine, lowering apathy and building emotional resilience. And perhaps most importantly, it is a universal social lubricant. Just sharing a cup is this wonderful, low-pressure way to foster mentorship, have deep conversation, and build those vital social connections that truly define a thriving life. Finally, Section 5, the Golden Rules, Strategic Implementation. Okay, here are your absolute strict rules of engagement to prevent dependency. The generally accepted safe upper limit is about 400 milligrams a day, which is roughly 4 cups. So the crucial point is managing how you consume it. You should seriously consider pairing your caffeine with L-theanine. It's an amino acid naturally found in green tea, and it wonderfully smooths out the jitters while enhancing a calm, focused state. And to ensure caffeine stays a tool and doesn't become a dependency, you absolutely have to cycle it. You need to take 1 or 2 days completely off every few weeks to reset those adenosine receptors and clear out your tolerance. Let's move to and see how this builds into a perfectly optimized strategic day. You take your anchor dose in the morning to spark that flow state, but by early afternoon, you initiate a strict cutoff. Why? Because caffeine has a 5 to 6 hour half-life. If you consume it late in the day, even if you feel like you can fall asleep just fine, it absolutely destroys the deep sleep architecture required for true cognitive and physical recovery. You literally need the evening for total adenosine clearance. And remember, your biology is totally unique. Genetics play a massive role here. If you happen to carry a specific variation of the CYP1A2 enzyme, you're what scientists call a slow metabolizer. That means caffeine stays in your system significantly longer than average. If that's you, you need even wider gaps between your last cup and your bedtime. Otherwise, you're just going to fall into this vicious cycle of caffeine debt, literally borrowing energy from tomorrow to pay for today. This quote right here summarizes the entire thesis of our explainer today. When we transition from mindless consumption to strategic application, caffeine becomes an ally of human agency. Caffeine is not a magical substitute for the fundamentals of health. It cannot and will not replace a solid foundation of deep sleep and good nutrition. But when you apply it strategically, respecting its half-life, leveraging it for deep work, and really honoring the ritual, it stops being a mindless habit. It actively amplifies your solid foundation and becomes a true ally. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. When you wake up tomorrow morning and reach for that warm mug, are you going to be drinking it reactively, just desperately trying to survive the day? Or will you wield it as a precision tool to thrive, to focus deeper, to lift heavier, and to build a flourishing life? The choice is entirely yours.